Krishna Prabhu for making this opportunity available to us. Thank you, presentation Prabhu. So from the names I see listed so far, there are some souls that have not met Prabhuji yet in person. But so most of you know Prabhuji very well. You don't need an introduction. For my own personal benefit, I'd like to introduce Prabhuji. So Prabhuji is a disciple of Swadhanath Swami Maharaj, and in his professional life he's trained as a physician, but currently is serving as a Savat monk, brahmachari at Iskcon Chapati, and from that amazing temple which has reached the hearts of so many souls throughout the world. Prabhuji is not only traveling all over the world, spreading the message of Krishna consciousness, but he's amazingly also serving as vice president. And all goes to your amazing service and
thank you.
Extending the mood of cooperation and compassion, love that exists in that gathering. Wonderful devotees. So, Prabhuji will be speaking to us today, Sunday feast. And my observation has been always that Prabhuji's lectures are extremely clear, wonderfully organized, extending compassion for Krishna and Acharyas. And the really sweet thing is Prabhuji also has like a really wonderful sense of humor that comes out in his lectures on occasion. So those are always wonderful to hear. And then devotees can post, as we have previously in this online format, post their questions either in chat or verbally ask them at the end. We do have Arthik at 12:30, and there's some youth that are signed up for the main Arthik and Srimati Arthik. So we'll just kind of go with the flow, I think, as best as we can, given the online format. And we can show the deities during the chanting. And then Prabhuji will also be fortunately joining us next Sunday, I believe, for Sunday Feast online lecture as well. So let's unmute ourselves and turn on your videos so that Prabhuji can not be speaking to black boxes. And welcome Prabhuji with a sincere Haribol. So, Haribol! Haribol!
Haribol!
Haribol! Haribol!
Krish, Rohinipriya Prabhuji ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. By Goldman.
Haribol!
Thank you, Prabhuji, for your patience.
Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm so sorry. I never realized this. I'm so sorry. So, thank you very much for letting me have this opportunity. Let me try and fix this. Yes, for letting me have this opportunity to um, address all of you and to be able to serve all of you uh, at our Sunday Feast program, virtual Sunday Feast program. And I feel very much grateful to be having this opportunity. I was going through the Srimad Bhagavatam and reading about the Lord's incarnation as Matsya. The Matsya incarnation, the Matsya avatar, is interestingly also called as the fish incarnation of the Lord. So this is where the Lord appeared as a huge fish to save the Vedas and to save the population that would be, or to save a community that would be populating the planet after the waters of devastation, Pralaya, had receded. And Srila Vyasadeva, he writes in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the glory of Lord Matsya. The Bhagavatam says, this is from the 8th canto, 24th chapter, verse number 52. Tvam sarvalokasya suhrit priyeshvaro yatma gurur jnanam abhishta siddhi tathapi loko na bhavantamandhadhir janati santam ridibadha kamaha. In today's presentation, I would like to focus on the word Suhrit. Suhrit Priya. Tvam sarva lokasya Suhrit Priya Ishvaro. So Ishvara means the Supreme Lord. Sarva lokasya Ishvara means the Supreme Lord of the entire creation. So this is a prayer where the Supreme Lord, Matsya, is being glorified as the Lord of the entire creation, and two adjectives are being used for the Supreme Lord. Already he has been defined, or already the adjective supreme has been used, but there are two other adjectives that are used to describe him. One is Suhrit, which means, or the translation in the Bhagavatam is the most well-wishing friend. And the other is Priya. Priya is the most dear. So the Supreme Lord is the most well-wishing friend and the most dear, or the dearmost entity for every single soul in this creation. Srila Prabhupada, he translates this as, my Lord, you are the supreme well-wishing friend of everyone, the dearmost friend, the controller, the super soul, the supreme instructor, and the giver of supreme knowledge and the fulfillment of all desires. But although you are within the heart, the foolish, because of lusty desires in the heart, cannot understand you. There are very rare circumstances where one would not be able to understand the relationship with a well-wisher or a very dear friend. I mean, there has to be certain difficult circumstances where that happens. Otherwise, generally speaking, good friendship where the friend is a well-wisher and is also very dear would mean very intimate relations, very intimate connection, very close relationship. That is what it would mean. So, if the Lord is one's dearmost friend, and if the Lord is the most well wishing friend, how is it that the living entity does not understand this relationship with the Lord? Or how is it that the living entity is in forgetfulness of this relationship with the Lord? Or why is it that we are not always affected by or inspired by or influenced by this wonderful relationship that we have with the Supreme Lord? Na bhavantam andhadhihi. This is what is mentioned in the verse. Na bhavantam andhadhihi. Janati santam riti baddha kama. So, one would not be able to understand this relationship fully or would not be inclined favorably always towards this relationship because of andhadhi. Andhadhi, dhi means intelligence. So when one's intelligence has been influenced by blindness, andha means blindness or darkness or ignorance. So when one is ignorant or blind towards a very essential and very important element or substance, because of that ignorance of that ingredient, despite the relationship, one could be disinclined towards the Supreme Lord. And what is that ingredient towards which one is andha or blind? Abhishta siddhi. Abhishta is what is very dear or that which one really aspires for. Everything else is subservient or subsidiary or insignificant in front of this particular substance or element. That is called as abhishta. Abhishta means dearer to one than even one's own life. And siddhi means achievement. So abhishta siddhi means typically it would mean fulfillment of all desires. Like Christmas is fast approaching. So a small story with a little humor in it. A young girl, about 9 years of age, was decorating her Christmas tree. And she was having a conversation with her mother. And suddenly, she practically shouted out. There was a sharp increase in the decibels, the sound decibels. So she was having a normal conversation, and suddenly she says that I hope Santa gives me a red bicycle this Christmas. So her mother is shocked. She asks her that, dear child, Santa would hear you even if you would speak this out normally. And the girl says, well, I know Santa would hear, but I specifically wanted Granny to hear this because she is hard of hearing. So, Abhishta Siddhi is that which we very much desire to have. And for that desire to be fulfilled, if the only way for us to have that desire fulfilled would be outside of ourselves, then we are going to seek help, we will reach out, we will shout out. When we become blind towards our Abhishta Siddhi, when we become blind towards that which is what we are hankering for, or we become ignorant of that, we kind of fall into this ignorant sleep, just as in sleep one becomes ignorant of one's existence. So there is this kind of sleep of ignorance that covers the living entity, wherein the living entity forgets that the only desire that one could aspire for, or the only desire that is inherent, that is the uh, constitutionally inherent to the living entity, is to serve the Supreme Lord. And other than that, desire to serve the Supreme Lord, nothing can satisfy the living entity at all. Now, service to since the Supreme Lord also expands as his creation, he expands into so many living entities. So, therefore, service to the Supreme Lord also has its form as service towards other living entities. Devotees and those who are not as yet realized as devotees, all. So, this laziness or lethargy or disinclination towards service leads the living entity to face dualities again and again and again, to face sorrows and absence of sorrows, which is sometimes called as happiness, situations of being sorrowful and situations where there is absence of sorrows. So this duality exists in this material world, and this is what the living entity, the embodied living entity, brings one to, which is very unfortunate. So by the grace of Krishna, through the words of realized souls, through the words spoken by realized souls, through the scriptures spoken by the Supreme Lord himself, or facilitated by the teachings of the realized souls, and through a process that has been established to be successful through the scriptures and through the behavior and activities of the realized souls, one has the opportunity to reawaken oneself to this Abhishta Siddhi, to this to the fulfillment of all the desires that one seeks or has, is to be of service 24/7. Jivera Swarupa Hai Krishnera Nityadas. The nature of the living entity, the constitutional nature, position, situation of the living entity is to serve. And since Krishna is the best recipient of service, since the Supreme Lord is the best person to reciprocate with our service, hence uh, we are encouraged to serve Krishna, to serve the Supreme Lord. The word Suharit here and the word Priya explains the nature of and the character of the person who is the perfect recipient of our service. Krishna as the most well-wishing friend, Suhrit, and the most dear or dearmost person, Priya. There's a wonderful quote in this regards, which can also serve as an inspiration for many of us in dealings with uh, certain people around us. This quote is about friendship and being a friend. The quote very beautifully states that friendship is a sweet responsibility and not an opportunity. I guess uh, what is the purport of this quote is that if one walks into this relationship as a friend, then one has to be aware of the wonderful opportunities that one would receive to reciprocate with a friend. However, if one walks into this relationship as an opportunist, one already has an agenda in mind, then one may miss out on so many opportunities to have wonderful reciprocations with a friend. So, to be able to perceive friendship as a wonderful, sweet responsibility and try not to be an opportunist and try not to uh, look at this relationship as a situation where one can have one's selfish agenda fulfilled would uh, help us feel healed in this material world, because everyone needs a friend. Krishna is the perfect murti, the perfect representation of being a friend or who a friend is. Nonetheless, Krishna is also he has also expanded within the heart of every living entity. So therein is the opportunity. Therein is the opportunity or the availability of establishing a very healthy relationship with another person. And generally, when one approaches any relationship, even if it is a relationship where one is subservient or one is a dependent, even as a dependent, if one exhibits responsibility, one gives one's heart, or one gives one's all to whatever is required for oneself to be in that relationship, then that is responsible behavior. And the interesting thing about being responsible is that it gives you opportunities to be happy. although the word responsibility has a certain gravity about it. Typically, wherever uh, one sees responsible behavior or one sees the exhibition of responsibility, we find that there are so many opportunities to be happy. Vis-a-vis versus irresponsible behavior would bring in more situations of discomfort, sorrow. So, friendship is where, on a personal level, one can understand that uh, one also has to uh, play one's part. One also has to be responsible for uh, our part of the deal. In the Niti, the ancient wisdom books, the Niti books, there's a beautiful description of what are the qualities of a friend. Before I state that, I would just want to tell you another short story about friendship. I'm sorry, my chair is a little rocking chair, so sometimes I just kind of give in to it. I'm so sorry. That isn't a Vyasasana here. Virtual classes can make you feel very comfortable, I guess. So, I have my back erect again. So the story. Two men who had been friends since childhood. They grew up in a small village, a rural community, and all their lives they had just lived in that village. They were grown up now. They had families. They had a visiting sadhu come to their village, a saintly person, and they requested the saintly person to uh, address the entire village. So typically, this is from the past, like a couple of centuries ago. This story is from then. So there's no electricity. You have the sun during the day, and at night you have lamps to help you do your work, oil lamps. So people would be very busy during the day because they had to get everything done, whatever was needed to be done by sunset or before sunset, much before sunset. They couldn't let things stay over for any chores to stay over for the night just because it's too dark, and trying to work in the light of lamps is a tedious job, especially in villages. However, if there is an opportunity to hear stories or there's an opportunity to hear some scriptural injunctions, then for hardworking villagers, the generally the suitable time is during the evenings. So this was so in the case of our two friends. So everyone, the entire village had gathered for the wonderful katha, the wonderful stories to be narrated from the Puranas in the evening. And then evening turned into night, night into midnight. And typically, or not typically, but sometimes the narration is so engrossing that you lose uh, your understanding of time. Well, in this case, the speaker was not aware of time. So the speaker went on speaking. By the time the speaker stopped, it was sunrise the next day. So an entire night of narrations. And one can try and imagine uh, what an interesting night it must have been. The only members of the audience that stayed there in the audience were the two friends. Everyone else had called it a night sometime during the narration. So the speaker was very happy to see that these two gentlemen had given him company. Well, he was completely lost in his narrations, but he was happy to see that at least two of them were there. One friend said to the other friend later on that if I had been by myself, then I would not have been able to spend the entire night there. And I'm so happy that you stayed with me, and we could stay for the entire narration. So the other friend was very quiet. So he said, "Well, do you have something to say?" The first friend was thanking him, that thank you for staying with me the entire night, or I would have been all alone. The second friend, he said, actually, I had offered you my cloth. Villages in India typically they have an upper cloth. It is called as the uttari. I had offered it for you to sit on. And since I did not want to disturb the speaker, I did not ask you to give my cloth back. So the only reason I was sitting there was because you were sitting on my cloth and I am attached to my cloth. So in this world, intent or the content of one's actions, the intent and the content both of one's actions are actually perceived only by oneself and by the Lord in the heart. Others who are not aware, who may not be aware of this, or let us say everyone else except the Lord in the heart, everyone else, including the very demigods themselves, they may not have access to the intent of one's actions. Hence, one has to be responsible. One has to accept responsibility by oneself, of oneself, and one has to be careful not to be an opportunist. One has to be, as I said, when one acts responsibly, then one sees so many opportunities come to one. However, when one is an opportunist, then one already has one's agenda. Then one becomes narrow-minded. Not only is one selfish enough to focus on just one's agenda, but when one becomes close to any other opportunities that may arrive, if it does not fit into one's agenda. Krishna is the perfect friend. And therefore, anyone whom we accept as a representation of Krishna is also the perfect friend. For example, the deity is the representation of Krishna, the perfect friend. For example, if we go to our temple, then we'll find our deity is never taking rest, although we sometimes put them to rest. At night or during the daytime, by Manas Seva, by by this very mystical process, we mentally invite the deities and ask them to take rest. Or we may have the representation of the deities in the form of what is called as the Utsava Vigraha. They are actually the Seva Vigraha, but we call them as the Utsava deities. Technically, the Utsava deities, very, very technically, the Utsava deities would be a little different from the Seva deities. So there's a concept of Seva Vigraha and there's a concept of Utsava Vigraha. For all of us who have been trained to serve deities in our society, for us, it is all right to just consider both of them to be the same. So we have the small deities. So the bigger deities stay standing 24/7. And the smaller deities who are an expansion of or representing the bigger deities may be physically put to rest. Even at homes, when someone is serving a deity at home, it is quite possible that their deities being small, they may physically put them to rest. Even if you physically put them to rest, mentally we have to conceive that they have their arms laid straight. Like if it is a deity of Krishna, then we have to mentally conceive that the hands are no longer in the flute playing stance. Because just by putting the deities physically into the bed, we don't see them stretching out their legs or stretching out their arms. That does not happen. So this is how Krishna is 24/7 our friend. He manifests that a particular form, especially in the deity form. He manifests that form 24/7. And he is ready to reciprocate with us when we offer Manasa Seva to him. So physically, the deity is still in the threefold bending form. Physically, the deity is still standing on the altar. Physically, the deity is still with the arms outstretched like that, as Gaur and Nitai do it in our temples. Mentally, on the mental plane, we conceive of them taking rest. So, from one perception is that in the physical form, Krishna just manifests his mercy as a friend who's a dearmost friend, 24/7 available to us. 24/7 the helpline is available to us. For example, if we are needing help in the night, we are also resting and suddenly we wake up and we run to Krishna. Then most of us, if at the temple, we'd run to Krishna. And whether it's we go to the altar, and if the need is there, that we approach the altar, because there are some temples that are open 24/7. There are many temples that close the altar, because again that is the training that we have received. So one can run to the deity. Like there are so many forms of Krishna where Krishna has manifested in the wild. Like he is manifested as the peepal tree, as the banyan tree, 24/7. One can approach them and seek shelter of them. As Mother Tulsi, as the Tulsi Devi, Krishna has manifested. 24/7 she is available for us, never taking rest. In her original form as Vrinda, because Tulsi is an expansion of Vrinda, we may put her deity to rest. But that's Tulsi Devi. 24/7. She is breathing for us. She is living for us. She is gracing us by her mercy. So the deity form of Krishna, his expansion as a deity form, his expansion as the Virat form, 24/7, the universal form, 24/7. Even when Krishna is in Yoga Nidra, he is constantly available uh, to reciprocate with his devotees. Even when all of us, during the waters of devastation, we enter the Udara, we all go back into Krishna's abdomen, or Garbhodakshai Vishnu's abdomen, or Mahavishnu's abdomen, if we have not been liberated. Um, Even then, Krishna, he keeps us alive. He keeps us in that sleep of Yoga Nidra till the next creation. So hence he is called here as Suhrit and Priya. So Krishna is behaving so responsibly, and he is never an opportunist. Therefore, on his part, he is performing his, he is living up to his part of the deal, being our eternal friend, being our eternal well-wisher. Yes? Similarly, the point to consider here is that when we form a relationship with another living entity in this material world, and we develop some friendship, this is being blessed by the Paramatma too. So Krishna is involved there. It is our desire and Krishna's blessings as the Paramatma. So as long as we see each other as friends who are essentially part and parcels of Krishna, and within whose hearts the Paramatma resides, we will be in knowledge. We will have achieved our abhisht, that which is the only desire and the greatest of all desires. So as members of a community, when we interact with each other, along with the relationships that the senses can understand, like the eyes understand, the ears understand, or the mind can conceive of. So along with the material connections that we see, it is very important to also constantly perceive the presence of the Paramatma within each other's heart, within our heart and within the heart of the other living entity. And when one comes to that state of consciousness, then materially we may be each other's, we may be meant to be food for each other, or we may be meant to be enemies of each other. Like technically a deer and a tiger, a frightened deer and a hungry tiger would also technically be the best of friends. Somehow they would find food for each other, and still the tiger would not jump at the deer, and the deer would not jump away from the tiger, would not run away from the tiger. This is what friendship really means. So in this material realm, this is what we can, this is something that we can meditate on, we can think about. It is not about, it should not just be about, oh, I offered my friend my cloth to sit on, so now I have to stay here with my friend. It shouldn't be like that. Well, that is one level of friendship. One is ready to do some sacrifice, but it shouldn't be just like that. Not just that is not enough, because as soon as the material discomfort goes beyond our tolerance, and that would happen any moment because we are affected by time. So time would definitely eat away at our tolerance. The body. So one has to go along with being tolerant. One has to use that tolerance to go a little beyond. One has to find joy in being tolerant, which basically would only happen if one sees the existence of Paramatma everywhere. And there are so many verses from the Bhagavad Gita that such a person is actually blissful. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, it is said. Such a person is blissful. Brahma Bhuta, someone who has reached the stage of seeing the Paramatma in all existence, in every living entity. Such a person is Prasannatma. Such a person is always blissful. So, in that state of existence, the tiger and the deer would also will feel very comfortable with each other. A hungry tiger and a frightened deer would also feel very comfortable with each other. And this was revealed when Lord Chaitanya was traveling through the forest of Jharikhand. He was chanting Hare Krishna and he was making the tiger and the deer dance with each other and be happy. So, I have only 2 minutes and then we have Aarti. I would like to continue this discussion next week too. I'm very sorry. I hadn't prepared for this to be a 2 session presentation, but I got carried away. I'm so very sorry. What we would be discussing is next time is some references from scriptures, and I will give you those references. If you want, you can meditate on it. These are common references. You can meditate on it or you can read about it, and we'll come together next week too. There are 2 friendships that I would like to focus on. 2 instances of friendship that is revealed. And they are kind of juxtaposed to each other. We can see the contrast between the 2 instances. One is the friendship that is being revealed in the scriptures between Krishna and his Brahmin friend Sudama. And the other is the friendship that is this is revealed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Sudama exchange, the Samvad. And the second one is from the Mahabharata, which is the friendship between Dronacharya and King Drupad. And we'll try and have some understanding from that. To conclude, and next week I will begin with this verse. There's this beautiful verse which is spoken in the Niti. The qualities of a true friend are purity, generosity, chivalry, equipoised in happiness and distress, politeness, affection, and truthfulness. The purport to this particular verse is a little different. With this, I would like to stop, and maybe this is my way of trying to pull in my audience next time. Let us see what happens next week. Thank you very much, and I'm very sorry I don't think I have time for questions and answers, but Ajay Sachinandan Prabhu should be able to help us here. So I'll stop here for this week and we'll continue next week. Friendship, a sweet responsibility versus opportunity. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Prabhuji, if we can, the Arctic can go on if you want to expand more during this session. We can have Arctic also going on, but it's rare that devotees will get a chance to hear from you. You don't want to deprive that opportunity. You do.
How do you feel about me? Because these are these 2 particular instances, and the story itself is very, very interesting to hear. So it could take some time, maybe half an hour to 45 minutes. So if I take that in the next session, like next week,
sure.
And today's presentation, maybe we can consider it to be complete in itself and see if there are any uh, comments, reflections, or questions. Is that all right, Jai Sachinanda Prabhu?
Yes, of course. So Prabhuji is opening up for all of you who are attending. Can you please pose your questions or reflections or comments? You can put them in the chat window also. I've done that in the past, but I think please go ahead and ask your questions or comments.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, can you speak a little bit louder? I think or come closer to your input device.
Okay, better?
I think so. Rohinipriya Prabhuji, can you hear?
I can. Is it possible that you could maybe be a little more loud?
How's it now?
Yeah, this is good.
This is good.
Yes.
I couldn't hear. Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for very nice description. And I just wanted to share that the one thing that you shared really stuck with me was the definition of friendship being a sense of sweet responsibility rather than opportunity. That was profound. Just wanted to share that, and I'm gonna write that down and probably stick it in my
Scrapbook?
scrapbook or maybe on my wall somewhere so I can remember it often.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pramkar.
Would anybody else like to share? Comments, reflections? Yeah, I really also was delighted at the topic and the discussion and the examples and practical explanations. I was seeing all these wonderful connections, like you said in the Gita, where Krishna explained so nicely about perfect yogi, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, both the happiness and distress. And Srila Prabhupada purport expands on that so nicely and correlates with what you're describing, seeing the presence of Paramatma within oneself and within others, and therefore that being a position of appreciating happiness and distress. So, thank you very much for giving us a wonderful example of can't wait and explaining this term. So, thank you. Would anybody else like to add anything else? If not, then I guess we can turn towards, well, His Grace Ki Jai.
Thank you so very much. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. I'm so sorry I cut you off, Jai Sachinanda Prabhu.
Thank you for being present and being safe and healthy.
Thank you so much.
Please, we can continue.
Hare Krishna.
We look forward to hearing from you next week. Please take care.
Thank you, you too.
We can transition then. Would everybody like to open up their audio and express their appreciation with the Lord Haribol? You can turn on your audio and your video.
Haribol!
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 Haribol! Haribol! Haribol!
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Sorry, Prabhu, that we had to look at a blank. Probably
I think
challenging, but thank you for tolerating.
you're most welcome. And
Right.
sorry, yeah.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Sorry, Prabhu, but we had
Here's what my black boxes. Probably challenging, but thank you for tolerating. Thank you. So we can, at this point, transition to Iskcon Hillsborough Temple and have darshan of the deities. And I think Gopal is going to be chanting